Hello everyone, this is Roger Brogan, and today we are going to learn how to create some custom middleware to handle global exceptions, and that's in a Web API ASP.NET Core 2.1 project using F Sharp. So we'll try to go over some code and talk about some of the motivation for why we might want to do this. So I'm just going to start with a regular template here. So we'll just create a new directory here. And from here, we'll just create a project from the command line, do .NET New, Web API, and do language F Sharp. And we'll just launch code here and see what we've got. So this is our standard project. And if we take a peek, we've got our regular values controller here. Instead of just taking an ID here and then echoing back value, let's say that what we actually want here is to take in a string and we want this value to be parsed into a date. So let's say we go ahead and parse this ID in here. And then we just return it. So if I go ahead and launch this at this point, and I type something that can actually be successfully parsed into a date, then we get exactly that. We get the date echoed back. If we look at the headers here, we get our 200 response. And if I type something in here that can't be correctly parsed, then we can see that we have an exception in here, format exception, and if we continue sending that back, we don't get something too descriptive back. We just get the 500 internal server error, and we don't really get any other response other than that. So that's not really that helpful for someone using our API. So if we want to do something a little bit different, we could go in here and we could certainly fix this by doing something as simple as adding some exception handling. So if I come in here and we add a try block, and then if we have our exception here, we'll have our width. We could return a JSON result of the message. And then this is going to be unhappy that we're not returning a JSON result up here. So we could do the same thing. And if we go ahead and restart this, and we hop back over to our browser and test, we can see that we're still getting our error, but we're getting our 400 back. It's a bad request. And we've sent a little more information back. Now, obviously, you want to be careful about the information you send back to this public API, but assuming this is an internal API and we want to give some meaningful messages to what was wrong, this is saying that we sent the wrong date format. But this is now, you know, typically not idiomatic F sharp anyway, right? We try to avoid exceptions. We try and deal with things that are results that are either there or not if we got a failure. And this would be a lot of boilerplate. We'd have to start putting these try catch blocks in all of our controller methods. So one thing that we can do is to pull this out and put it into some middleware so that if we get some exceptions, we can just capture those and then we can kind of clean this up and just have it in one place. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to call it ex handler F sharp, and we'll make sure that it's actually included. And in here we'll do a few things. We'll just copy it into the same namespace here. And let's put a type in here called ex handler. Now this takes a request delegate. So it's going to open that. And it does return a task, so let's give the compiler a little help there. And what we need is a member in here called invoke async. And this takes a context, that is of HTTP context. And I put that in the wrong place. Right? This is what actually returns the task here. And this is async, so let's put in an async block here. And this can be a little bit clunky going from F sharp async to .NET task, but it works. And that's not what I wanted. There we go. So inside of here, we can do this do bang operator. And in here, we need to invoke the delegate and then pass in the context here. And just to deal with the correct types, we'll await the task here. And then we'll catch our exception. We'll basically do the same code that we had over here. Except now we need to pull this off the context. And we've got some opens that we need. And we need open system as well. And system threading tasks. And we need to fix up the final little complaint here. I'm going to start this as a task and then just cast it back down to task so that it's happy there. And actually get a hold of the context here, its response, and write out async. And we'll write out our message, and we'll pipe this to an async await task. And so far so good. So we could go back over here and get rid of all of this exception handling. Make this a little nicer looking. And we just need to make sure that we set up our middleware here. Actually gonna not use the developer exception page because that will interfere with our new exception handler. We can leave our HTTPS redirect. And we'll just use our middleware here. And if we run this, we should get a similar experience. So let's take a peek. So if we send over a valid date, we get our date back. If we turn over something that's not going to be parsed, then we get our error message back. But we've cleaned up the code significantly. We've moved it into middleware, and anytime we get an exception thrown from any of these methods, it'll go into the middleware. So there you have it. There's a global exception handler using middleware in F# Web API. Thanks a lot, everyone.